In our 7th year together, I finally learned Jessica Miller had someone she'd carried a torch for all along. And the day I was diagnosed with stomach cancer, her one that got away flew back to the country. When I went alone to the hospital for chemo, I saw her and that man walking out of the OB divided by GYN department together. I finally made up my mind to ask for a divorce and set her free, but her eyes went red, and she said she'd get an abortion and come back to the marriage. I was exhausted. I was disgusted. This morning, while I was straightening up the place, a sharp pain tore through my stomach. I doubled over, drenched in cold sweat. I wanted to ask my wife Jessica for help, but she just poured a cup of hot water, set it in front of me, and told me she was heading out to go shopping with her girlfriends. I was in too much pain to speak. She looked stunning, bold makeup, a tight bodycon skirt hugging her hips, a sultry spark in her eyes. She seemed unusually happy today, a bounce in her gaze I'd never seen before. I couldn't bring myself to ruin it, and she didn't notice how bad I was. The door clicked shut. I clutched the table and slid to the floor. My stomach heaved. A metallic sweetness surged up my throat. The white-gray tiles were suddenly splashed with bright red. I fumbled out my phone and dialed emergency services. That was all the self-rescue I could manage. At the hospital, they ran a full workup and finally gave me the verdict. Late-stage stomach cancer. The doctor said I needed to start treatment as soon as possible, if I wanted any chance of extending my life. Otherwise, I might have only a few months. Holding the diagnosis in my hands, I sat in the corridor and felt a wave of grief crash over me. I wanted to call Jessica, desperately wanted to hear her voice, but the line was busy. All I got was the fast, busy tone. I opened WeChat and asked what she was up to, but there was no reply. I felt like the whole world had tossed me aside. I leaned against the hospital's cold wall, alone. My phone chimed. I opened it full of hope, only to see a message from a coworker. The hope drained away. The message was a video. It was shot at the East Side airport. A man and a woman locked in a tight embrace. A banner to the side spelled out the man's identity. Jason Smith, an award-winning pianist returning from abroad. And the woman was my wife, Jessica. Staring at the man's face, I flashed back. That morning while cleaning, I'd found a photo tucked inside a book in the study. The man in the picture was Jason. On the back, in neat handwriting, were the words, "My forever one that got away." It was Jessica's handwriting, no mistake. Before I could ask her about it, disaster hit me. My coworker sent a voice note, worried. "Boss, is that your wife? Please don't blow up. Go talk to her first. If this is a misunderstanding, I'd hate to be the reason for it." "I'm your buddy. I couldn't keep this from you." I thanked him and said I'd handle it. Told him not to worry, but my chest felt heavy and tight. Jessica finally called back. She sounded like she was having a great time. "Babe, what's up? I was at the movies and missed your messages." I could hear faint piano music in the background. I really wanted to know if that was Jason. "It's nothing. Just wanted to ask who you were hanging out with today. I happened to get a day off and thought I'd come keep you company." Jessica hesitated, hedging. "Who else? Kristen. It's just us girls. You really shouldn't come. Another time." I let out a flat and hung up. I didn't want to suspect my own partner, but that video and that photo kept pushing up a tide I couldn't hold back. I opened WeChat, tapped Kristen's avatar, and sent a message. "KC is in a few days. I want to get Jessica a gift. Could you suggest something?" "Just ask Jessica, or I can show you how to feel her out." "Jessica's asleep. She hasn't been feeling well lately. I don't want to wake her." After I sent it, my hands twisted tighter together. I wanted to hear she was out shopping with Kristen. No such luck. So jealous of Jessica. "I'm traveling for work and won't be back for over a month. I'll visit her when I return." I didn't know how to reply. My head was a mess. In the end, she had answered me with a lie. Even so, I clung to a sliver of hope, wishing Jessica would explain maybe I really had misunderstood her. We met in the height of summer 7 years ago. My career had just started to turn around when I got the news my mother had died. My parents divorced early. Mom raised me alone. Those were the darkest days of my life. I sat on a park bench with a coffee, swallowed by the noise of the crowd, yet lonelier than ever. Jessica was handing out flyers under the blazing Sunday. Noticing how low I was, she came over to talk. She was like a cheerful sprite, coaxing me out of the fog. She told me she was an orphan too, that she'd never known a parent's love. She once had an older brother she relied on, but he'd left her to go abroad. Two lonely souls leaned into each other, and my heart slowly filled. I started looking after her, and over time I realized I loved her. I confessed, proposed, we got our marriage license. She said yes, quickly. Everything went so smoothly I thought I'd found the love of my life. Looking back now, maybe Jason was the brother she meant, but not the kind I imagined. He was her fixation, her one she never got over, the man she truly wanted to spend a lifetime with. A sour ache swelled in my chest, and a scorching pain flared in my gut. I ran to the bathroom and dry heaved. Blood mixed with clear water in the white sink. Staring at my wretched reflection, despair washed over me. In the end, I was still on my own. I picked up my meds from the pharmacy, went home, and kept tidying the mess. It was already 8 at night, and Jessica still wasn't back. Worried, I called to ask where she was. Luke Dawson, Kristen just got dumped and she's a mess. I'm staying with her a few days. Take care of yourself at home. She sounded a little breathless. I asked why. She said she'd just been doing a fat-burning workout with Kristen. What a joke. Kristen's out of town on a business trip. As for what Jessica was really doing, I didn't dare imagine. And this time she called me by my name. Since we got married, she'd always called me hubby, as if to give me a sense of security. Never once used my name. Was she covering something up today? I thought Kristen was on a business trip these past 2 days and hadn't come back yet. Oh, she just broke up on that trip. She just got home. Okay, take care of yourself too. The pain, laced with bitterness, spread to my heart. My stomach started cramping again. I swallowed a handful of pills and curled up on the bed, trying to ease it. But the boundless darkness and loneliness wrapped around me. Veins stood out on my body. In the end, I really was alone. I didn't sleep a wink that night. I thought about a lot of things: quitting my job, getting treatment, confronting Jessica. I couldn't just sit here and guess by myself. At the office, my coworkers were talking about the famous pianist who'd just come back and would hold a concert at the end of the month. Jason's name hit my ears out of nowhere. He was that famous. Boss Luke, are you taking your wife to see him? I remember she likes piano music. My breath hitched. My thoughts ran wild again. I'll look into it later. Have to see what she wants. A young girl couldn't help sighing. Boss Luke and his wife are such a great couple. I heard Jason, too. He was abroad for 7 years, came back having mastered his craft, bravely chasing love. They say the day he returned, people saw him in a passionate embrace with his lover. Man, I'm jealous. When will I get a boyfriend like that, or like Boss Luke? The coworker who'd sent me that video, Tony, must have sensed something. He suddenly looked up at me. Seeing my expression, he quickly gave that girl some work and cheerfully steered the topic away. Boss, your wife would never betray you. You've got to stay strong. We all still need you leading us, he whispered in my ear, trying to comfort me. I might need to take some time off. You'll have to lead everyone from here on. Tony slapped my shoulder with a big laugh. His rough and ready manner actually reassured me the most. Boss, don't talk like that. I thought you weren't coming back. I know you've got to handle things at home. We'll be here waiting for you. I wanted to speak, but just nodded silently. I told the higher-ups to keep my resignation quiet, or at least not to tell them until after I'm gone. I checked myself into the hospital alone. The doctor seemed surprised to see me by myself. Young man, aren't you married? How can you come here alone? You need someone to take care of you. It's fine. I'll hire a caregiver in a bit. On the first day of my hospital stay, I contacted Jessica and told her I was sick, that it was cancer. She laughed and said I was joking with her. Jessica, you've been gone a week. When are you coming home? You're a grown man. Can you stop drowning in romance every day? I want a life of my own too. But I really don't have much time. I have cancer. Don't use that as a threat. Who would believe it? The call cut off. She even sounded a little angry. The pain of chemotherapy was unbearable. My hair started falling out in clumps. I often couldn't stop myself from vomiting blood. I lived on IV drips, unable to eat anything. For a whole week, Jessica didn't call me once. Crippled by cancer, I barely had the energy to notice anything else. Out of boredom, I flipped through my calendar and suddenly realized it was Chishi, the Lovers Festival. I didn't really need Kristen's help. I'd already bought the gift and left it on the nightstand. Too bad she never noticed. I couldn't help calling her, wanting to hear her voice. Jessica, today's Kishi. I've already taken leave. Are you still at Kristen's? I'll come find you. Jessica's voice was hurried and a little impatient. On her end, it was noisy, like some amusement park. Luke, Kristen's upset. If we show off our love in front of her, we're just rubbing salt in the wound. One cheesy isn't a big deal we can celebrate next year. She hung up quickly. The beeping tone followed. How could it be the same? I might not live to see next year. During these days of treatment, my schedule changed too. I never knew when the pain would hit. It kept me from sleeping night after night. If I didn't suddenly think to check my phone, I wouldn't even know what day it was anymore. It was already the end of the month. I remembered that young girl saying Jason's concert was at the end of the month. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through entertainment news for the first time in ages. Around 3 in the afternoon, just after chemo, a trending topic shot to the top of Weibo. Number Jason gets the girl number, glowing red in the #1 spot. I clicked in. It was a video and related reports. Jason was down on one knee, offering Jessica a bouquet of pure white roses. Jessica, overjoyed, burst into tears and threw herself into Jason's arms. Two lovers finally together. Who would have thought the woman in the video was a married woman whose husband was fighting for his life? Jessica called me herself, trying to explain. Luke, he's the brother I told you about. The stuff online is all media nonsense they misunderstood. I didn't want to think anymore. I was dying anyway. Okay, Jessica, I believe you. When are you coming home? For a moment, neither of us spoke. Maybe my voice was so weak Jessica heard something in it. Or maybe she was wondering why I still believed her. In the end, someone brushed the screen and the silent call disconnected. I thought then there was nothing left I couldn't accept. But fate loves to mock me. It made me run into Jessica at the hospital. Summer had passed. They say September is golden autumn. I'd been cooped up in the ward too long, so I had the caregiver take me out for some air. The hospital grounds were nicely landscaped. A few white pigeons flew across the square. The cool air on my skin made me decide to head back inside. On the breeze came a few whispered words that froze me in place. Did you hear? That Jason? Everyone's been talking about his girlfriend's pregnant? Someone just saw them going into the OB divided by GYN. I swayed on my feet. The caregiver heard it too and couldn't resist making a joke. That guy moves fast. End of August, and barely half a month later, she's pregnant. Obvious they were already messing around when he came back. I just had to put on a show for everyone so fake. I didn't know if it was rage or something else. A wave of nausea hit me. Sir, are you all right? Please help me over to the OB, divided by GYN. I want to take a look. Didn't think you were this nosy too. I didn't answer him again. We walked in silence. From a distance, I saw a familiar figure, my wife's figure. I could never mistake her. Jason was crouched beside Jessica, his head pressed against her belly. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. The air reeked of their love. The stench of it made me sick. Since we married, Jessica had always resisted intimacy between us. Even said she wanted to be child-free. I thought she was afraid of the pain and I was willing to respect her wishes. Turns out she just didn't want to be with me. She just didn't want to have my child. Pain twisted through my stomach. I bent over, gulping for air. Sir? Are you okay? The caregiver's voice rose, drawing everyone's eyes, including Jessica's. She looked stunned, as if she didn't understand why I was there. The caregiver eased me into the nearest chair, and I asked him to bring Jessica over. I wanted to go to her myself, but that was a place welcoming new life. They were the future of the world. They shouldn't have to see a useless man like me or hear something so dirty. I leaned back against the cold wall and watched Jessica gently touch her belly and walk toward me. Luke, why are you here? The gentleman here has late-stage stomach cancer, the young caregiver blurted out. He spoke plainly and assumed Jessica was Jason's girlfriend, never thinking she had anything to do with me. Luke, what's going on? Jessica's voice was hoarse, tinged with tears. What was going on? I wasn't sure myself. After we married, Jessica stopped handing out flyers at the park entrance, saying she wanted to be a stay-at-home wife. Even then, I never made her do a bit of housework. I'd spoiled her into a girl whose fingers never touched spring water. I wanted her to have a good life. I drank and entertained clients. She liked luxury goods and never batted an eye buying them. I'd climbed from an employee to a vice president while my body broke down. But I knew it wasn't her fault. Even without her, I'd have worked hard. I was just sad, just felt cheated. If she didn't like me, why accept my proposal? If she did, why not stay loyal to our marriage instead of cheating? I told you, stomach cancer. I'm dying. The doctor had told me to stay calm, avoid emotional outbursts. Maybe I really was triggered. My stomach pain twisted harder, my teeth biting my lip until it bled. At last, with Jessica calling my name over and over, I lost consciousness. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in my ward. Instinctively, I wanted to ask the caregiver for water, but the person sitting there was Jessica. We hadn't seen each other for over a month. It felt like a lifetime. She held out a cup to me, but I couldn't sit up to drink. The caregiver rushed over with a straw. Jessica looked embarrassed as expected. She'd never cared for anyone. Honey, I'm sorry. I've been negligent. I shook my head. I didn't know why she'd switched back to that name, but I didn't want to hear it anymore. Jessica, let's get divorced. Call me by my name from now on. Her eyes filled with tears. She sobbed softly, shaking her head. No, don't divorce me. Let's not divorce. I didn't understand what she was clinging to. Her beloved white moonlight had already come back. Why wouldn't she let me go? Jessica, you're pregnant, right? Whose child is it? My gaze was sharp, locked on her face. Her eyes darted. It's Jason's, isn't it? Kristen's been on a business trip all month. What breakup were you comforting her from? My voice rose, anger spilling out with all my hurt and frustration. Jessica, I saw that photo in the study. He's your white moonlight, the one you've always waited for. I didn't care about your lies. Now he's back and you're carrying his child. Why won't you let me go? My heart raced, tugging at my stomach, waves of nausea rising. Jessica covered her face with both hands, fat tears slipping through her fingers. But I noticed the blisters on her hand marks from oil splatter while cooking. My heart grew colder. I'd never let her into the kitchen. In 7 years, she'd never cooked me a meal. The girl I'd done everything to pamper was turning around to cook for someone else. In the end, I just wasn't worth it. Honey, I never wanted to divorce you. Jessica kept repeating the words. To my ears, they were knives. I couldn't stop myself. I roared like a madman, pounding the bedboard. She didn't want a divorce. Then what? Two-timing? A husband to care for her every need on one side, her youthful crush to make her happy on the other. How big must her nerve be to say such things? At that moment, Jason burst in, scooped up the sobbing Jessica, and glared at me. Luke, right? Don't you know Jessica's pregnant? She can't have emotional stress. Are you deliberately trying to make things hard for her? I couldn't understand how Jason could say these things so righteously. Jessica is my wife. She's carrying your child. I'm dying. Does anyone ask if I'm okay? Jason, as long as I'm not dead, you'll always be the third party. In my heart, I still meant to divorce her, but I couldn't resist a parting shot. Seeing his face darken gave me a small satisfaction. Jessica nestled into Jason's arms, burying her head in his elbow, a picture-perfect pair. Jessica will divorce you soon. Jason spat the words and stormed off. I actually hoped she would divorce me right away, but I had a feeling a woman like her, I'd never escape, even in death. When they left, the room fell silent. The caregiver stared at me, incredulous. Sir, didn't expect him to look like a person, but act like a dog. What a pair of scumbags. He was sticking up for me, and it warmed me a little. At least someone was on my side. And then the unexpected happened. What went down that day in the hospital was caught on camera by someone and posted online. In no time, it set off a storm of debate. Jason was branded a homewrecker, and his pairing with Jessica dragged out and flogged online. The comments were a wall of curses, scumbag, slut. They hurled the vilest words at them. People at the company saw the video too, and word spread that I had stomach cancer. They spoke up for me, using their own social accounts to defend me. I'm Luke's subordinate. Our boss worked himself half to death, drinking at business dinners till he got stomach cancer, all just to support Jessica. And she cheated in human. Boss Luke's diligent and devoted. He really loves his wife. For someone like him to get cheated on, it's sickening. Boss Luke even prepared a Kishi gift for Jessica a few days ago. She really has no heart. I read the comments, unsure if I should feel sad or glad. Their support made me happy, but their words stabbed right through my chest, branding me a fool for love for the whole world to see. But in the end, the outcome was good. Jason and Jessica fell from being a legendary couple envied by all to a pair everyone spat on. Some even made a timeline, piecing together proof of their affair. I had no strength to do that, and no desire to. Jason was the first to find me. He wanted me to help clear his name, to say Jessica and I were already divorced. The gall of him stealing my wife, playing the third wheel, and still wanting me to play along as the ex-husband. What a joke. I'd love to divorce. Why don't you get Jessica to agree already? Bothering me is useless. It's not me you need to divorce. Lying in my hospital bed, I felt lighter than I had in ages. Jason's expression darkened. He and Jessica must have already fallen out. He tried to push further, even to threaten me. But before he could move, my colleagues visiting me blocked him. They all had fire in their bellies. Over the years, they'd seen how I treated Jessica with their own eyes. Now I had cancer and was being cheated on. They stood with me, and they couldn't swallow it either. There were so many of them that the ward turned crowded. A dozen hot-blooded youngsters couldn't hold back and landed Jason a few punches. At least he learned a lesson. Jason had no choice but to slink away. My resignation couldn't be kept secret from them in the end. That sentimental young girl sobbed uncontrollably. Me, a patient, had to keep comforting them. Odd as it sounded, I enjoyed it. They gave me a sense of family. Online, things escalated quickly. Media and bloggers soon tracked down my hospital. They swarmed in. I wanted to drive them away, but I was too weak. Mr. Luke, when did you first discover Jessica's affair? Mr. Luke, what do you think of Jason? Mr. Luke, how do you plan to punish them? Question after question pounded my head, piling misery on top of exhaustion. For the sake of headlines, they'd stop at nothing, even harassing a terminal cancer patient. Then, a frail female voice rose from the back of the crowd. Jessica. The cameras whipped around, forcing her into a corner. I looked at her pale face, so weak she nearly fainted. Flashbulbs lit her up as she clung helplessly to the wall. Luckily, the caregiver and security came in time to clear them out. I never imagined Jessica would be so cruel. Not to me, to the child in her belly. When she appeared before me again, her belly was flat, her face haggard. Honey, I got rid of the baby. Let's not get divorced, okay? A fragile smile tugged at her lips, broken, yet strangely beautiful. But I couldn't understand. Wasn't this the child she'd longed for 7 years? Why get rid of it? Jessica, it's no use. Let's divorce. Honey, I didn't mean to lie to you. I was afraid you'd misunderstand. That day Jason came back, I was happy. I drank too much, and it just happened. I was blinded by my teenage crush, but when I learned you were sick, I couldn't stop imagining the pain of losing you. It hurt too much. I realized then I'd already fallen for you. I just didn't know it. Jessica spoke as if delivering a speech, blaming it all on drunken recklessness, on love she hadn't recognized. But if the first time was an accident, what about the whole month after? If she hadn't found out I was terminal, would she ever have realized she loved me? What a fraud. I said it all to her. She was left speechless, stammering but with no words. Honey, I went home yesterday. I saw the Chishi gift on the nightstand. You still love me. So she had seen it. Maybe I loved you then. But I don't. Anymore. Jessica's eyes dimmed. No matter what I said, she still refused to divorce. Jessica! I don't want to see you! Whatever love I had long been ground to dust by her lies and betrayals. She shook her head frantically, trying to throw herself into my arms like before. But I dodged without mercy. I wanted her gone, but she insisted on staying to take care of me. It only made me restless. She'd never cared for anyone, and she'd just lost a child, her body weak. What was she playing at? Outside. The leaves had turned yellow, scattered by autumn wind. Just like me, lonely all my life, now broken in body too. It was no longer summer, not the summer I once held in my heart. The caregiver bristled with hostility toward Jessica, often picking on her. But Jessica endured it all, which surprised me. I wondered she'd been here 3 days, and Jason hadn't shown up. Women's hearts unfathomable. On the 5th day, Jason hobbled into my ward in a patient gown, limping. I was surprised to see him. He saw Jessica bustling by my side and his temper exploded. He grabbed her collar, ready to start a fight right there, until the caregiver blocked him. "Jessica, you're heartless! You got me drunk and tied me up!" If some paparazzi hadn't broken in this morning and found me, I would have starved to death at home. The weight of it hit me. I looked at Jessica's face, and there, I caught a flicker of hate. "Shame you didn't starve to death. My husband is fighting for his life. Here you don't get to have it easy either." Jason's eyes went wide in disbelief, rimmed with red. He slammed a fist into the hospital wall, venting his rage. "What did you say?" "I went abroad for you. 7 years of being looked down on. Finally came back accomplished, and this is how you treat me?" Hearing that, Jessica completely lost control. She shoved Jason hard, nearly hysterical. "That was for yourself. I begged you to take me with you, and you said I was a burden." 7 years have passed. I'm married now, and I love my husband. Why come back just to wreck my life? I couldn't listen anymore. The two of them tossed blame back and forth, never seeing their own faults. Maybe it was true I didn't love her anymore. My heart barely stirred. But I couldn't stay here. Chemo was already torture. With them disturbing me too, I'd never find peace, not even in death. When Jason learned Jessica had aborted the baby, he collapsed on the floor in despair. That had been his last hope, and it was gone. Jessica leaned on the table with one hand, clutching her stomach with the other, and suddenly burst out laughing. She laughed until she cried, her eyes glittering with vindictive glee. Both of them were mad. The noise brought a nurse, who scolded them and broke up the scene. For me, it was time to leave. I asked the caregiver to arrange my discharge. While Jessica went out to buy food, I slipped away. The caregiver said I shouldn't, but it didn't matter anymore. I didn't want more treatment. Better to spend the time left, seeing my country's beauty. The caregiver was a fresh graduate. I asked if he'd come. He agreed without hesitation. So we set out. By National Day, we were in Tiananmen Square, watching the flag rise. My blood surged with pride. I'd planned to climb Shangshan to see the red leaves, but my body couldn't take it. We lingered at the foot of the mountain before moving on to the sea. Gazing at the vast blue ocean, my heart felt lighter. Then we went to Yunnan, to the grandeur of Changshan and Erhai. In Lijiang Old Town, we rented a small inn, but my health declined fast, and I had to stop and rest. One evening, my phone rang. A colleague. I answered, and heard Jessica's voice. "Honey, we're not getting divorced, right?" I stayed silent. None of it mattered anymore. I had no desire to keep tangling with her. I was nearly gone anyway. "Honey, I'll give you an explanation." Then she hung up. The next day, the caregiver rushed in, phone in hand, showing me the news. That explanation was Jason's death. Reports said the renowned pianist was killed in an explosion at his villa, likely caused by a gas leak. By the time they found him, his body was charred beyond recognition. I could imagine the agony he'd suffered. Then another headline hit the top trends. Jessica had jumped from the hospital rooftop. I felt eerily calm, just surprised. I hadn't expected them to die before me, but it was their own doing. My colleagues called one after another, especially the one whose phone Jessica had borrowed. He blamed himself for lending it. I told him not to worry, they'd reaped what they sowed. Tony, though, was furious, shouting, "Serves them right," again and again, which actually made me chuckle. They wanted to come see me, but I was spent, a candle burning out. Their visit would only bring sorrow. I didn't want to taste another farewell. 7 summers ago, my mother died the same way, stomach cancer. Maybe I should have foreseen my end. I gave part of my savings to the caregiver, payment for walking with me on this last stretch. Years of work had built up a decent amount. The rest, along with my property, I donated to charity. I hoped the money could help others tortured like me. At last, one quiet night, I saw my mother's figure. She told me I'd suffered enough. I suddenly thought of leaving a sum for the innkeeper too. I might die here, leaving his house tainted by my death. Once everything was settled, I lay quietly in bed, gazing at the bright moon outside, and finally closed my eyes forever.